Star quality. I got it. I got this. You got it. You got it. My chart says so. Look at me go. Sun moon rising. It's all about time. It's all about time. Earthlings. What's it all mean? What's it all mean? Star quality.
What's it all mean? What's it all mean? Mean.
Star quality. No, dude, really, what does it all mean? Star quality. I got it. You got it. We got it. Star quality. Star quality.
Welcome, Star Party people. It is another episode of Star Quality with me, your host, astrologer Stevie Goldstein. And this is not any episode of Star Quality. It is Venus Things. Venus Things. Venus Things. Venus Things. If you're new here, Venus Things is the last Friday of the month's episode. If you don't know, Friday is Venus's day. I connect heavily with the planet Venus. I'm a Taurus sun, conjunct Taurus and Venus. I love Venus. Who doesn't? I mean, Venus is the girl. She does the things. The girl, that girl. Yeah. So Venus Things is the end of the month recap, check in. Also, I'll go over things that I enjoyed, whether that's in the realms of music or media or books or food or, products. And if anything's an ad, I'll let you know. But these are all just from my pure Venetian heart. This episode, we will also have we'll start out with a couple questions from our third space members, and not just our third space members, but these are founding members. By coincidence, the two questions submitted. So if you're new here and you're enjoying what you're listening to, there'll be a good chunk of this episode that is free. We'll go over the advice questions, and I'll get into more stuff in a bit. Like, we're definitely going to talk about the rehearsal and Nathan Fielder, and I'm going to go over his natal chart because simply must. Taurus legend, super Taurus. He's like a new moon, Taurus new moon, conjunct Mercury, Kazemi, new moon baby. I think with Mars there too. So we'll go over that. I'm going to go over like concerts, things I saw. I just have a playlist for you. I got you. I got you set for this end of May recap situation. But if you're like, what the hell is third space members? That is the name for the folks who are in the paid level of this Substack. So if you would like to get the bonus content, the paywall content for just $7.77 a month, so like the cost of getting me an iced coffee with oat milk, iced latte to be specific, so I can tip the barista, you get all the full weekly horoscopes. They're paywalled after. There's a tease of Monday through Wednesday, and then there's the paywall. Same thing with like podcast episodes. I always give a good chunk out for everyone. And then if you want to keep going with me, dive deeper into the episode, that's where I extend that out to the paid supporters. I'm an indie publication. I'm an indie astrologer. And this is not backed by Boeing or Big Pharma or anything like that. I don't think I would do that even if offered. Hopefully it would be something not as evil. I say as evil because you never know with any companies, really, even the ones that pretend to look not as evil. Actually, this goes into the first question of this Venus Things episode. But anywho, so this is all created, written, researched, produced, hosted, art design, art directed, etc. by me. And your support makes this happen. So I can put out even more episodes. And May was a relatively, let's look back at the astro of May a little bit. May was a relatively chill month. It was almost like in 3 chapters. Like the first week was like pretty mellow. That was my birthday week on May 2nd. I'd say up until like the 10th-ish. Then the mid-month seemed to be a crank up of energy. And then the end of the month, which we're at right now, is a lot because there's just a lot of changes. Yeah, Saturn will be moved into Aries. Is that already happening? I'm recording a little bit ahead of time, and I'll get into it because I have a cool announcement of something coming up. No, that's going to be tomorrow because this episode's coming out on May 23rd. Saturn moves into Aries on the 24th, and Mercury moves into Gemini. We're in Gemini season now. So that switch from earthy energy to air energy is here. It's real. And yeah, and then there's more stuff to come in early June, including Jupiter's move into Cancer. So yeah, I hope there was a little bit of a peaceful reset in the beginning of May. And if you feel like all of a sudden the volume was like cranked up to 11 or like that everything started happening all at once come mid May, end of the month, that was pretty on time astrologically. So, yeah, let me get into the first question. And if you would like to submit a question, please join the third space. You can also get a free trial if you want to see how it's going over on the other side of the paywall. And I'm thinking, let me know what you guys think. I'm thinking of possibly opening up questions to everybody, only with the caveat, don't worry, third spacers, because you're like, wait, that's my perk. With the caveat, if I pick a question from non-paid supporters, that if their question is good enough, I will comp you a paid subscription for a month. What do we think? Is that fun? Is that fun? And then you can see if you like it. Then like, I don't know. I just would love to hear, I want to try to be a fair, my IC is 0 degrees Libra. I'm trying to be a fair leader here, a fair counselor, a fair older sister vibe. So I'd love to hear from more of you, but also maybe that's a system that makes sense. And then you get like inside for a minute. And then if you want to keep going, then you can. And then I reward juicy questions because I appreciate y'all writing in and asking about your charts, your life, general astrology questions. And so actually these two are going to be more about general astrology questions versus about their chart in particular, but that is not off the table in the future if you want to submit a question. But let's get with the first question, who is submitted by Emily. Thank you, Emily, for being a third space member. Okay. Her question is about Pluto and Aquarius. And she wrote, girl, I got to know your take on Pluto and Aquarius. I've seen so many AI focused predictions, but I want to know what your thoughts are on what this long-term transit means for us as a people. Please tell me there's a revolution against capitalism. Emily. Okay, let's talk about what Pluto and Aquarius will mean for us as a people. And again, this is for entertainment purposes only. We will never know what the future will exactly hold because the future is not finite, right? But we can get some clues into the themes, and that's what astrology can be super great for navigating. So I've made 2 other posts about Pluto and Aquarius, and I'm going to answer the question, but I just wanted to highlight these posts that I've made when Pluto first moved into Aquarius. So there was one during the first ingress before it retrograded back, just kind of talking about general themes. And then also the second post, which was about more of those themes, but also had some horoscopes for your Pluto in Aquarius transit. About Pluto and Aquarius is that for the first chunk of Pluto and Aquarius, and Pluto's in Aquarius till like 2044. So this entered for good in 2024. 2024. I said 2044. Yeah. So it's here for a hot minute, right? And for the first like 10 years, it is getting pretty supported from both Uranus and Neptune, all the outer planets. So Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, those are our outer trio. That's what they do. And so getting along or, sextiles and trines, if you will, doesn't always mean things will be good, right? But there's a agreement that maybe things are bad. And I think that that is going to be the first step for the next 10 years is I don't know what's like that phrase in like grief, like the first step is admittance, or what's the first step? Like, oh my god, obviously I'm rusty with the steps. Maybe this is also with like addiction as well. Okay. So the five stages of grief: denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. I think this is just my opinion. I have a feeling that Pluto and Aquarius is going to be 1 through 4. And maybe Pluto and Pisces might be step 5. So, we're going to have Uranus, the planet of technology and change and surprises, in Gemini, the sign connected to technology. And did I already say technology? Well, they're both connected to technology and communication, the internet, like all of these things about how we communicate with each other. Neptune and Aries, of course, we, for many reasons, can associate with war because Aries is connected to war. Aries is also the sign of self, and how do we step into our own self-made dreams. And then Pluto and Aquarius, it's like, will capitalism go away? I mean, if people are too broke to fucking eat, I guess that's possible. And that's kind of seems where things are heading. Now, I'm talking from a United States point of view because I live in the United States, and um, I'm assuming that that's kind of what we're talking about. In the United States, capitalism seems to be, I'm sure there's other countries that that's their system, but this is definitely ours. So just speaking from as a astrologer based in the United States, thinking about capitalism in a American way, I think Pluto and Aquarius is really going to expose what works for the future and what doesn't. It's funny because I think in astrology too, the planets are rooting for us in our highest potential. And it's funny because if you think about Pluto being this planet of death and rebirth and transformation, when we had it in Capricorn, that seemed actually like a really great opportunity to dismantle the fiction around, if you work hard enough and bootstraps and capitalism and this, but we didn't do that. And it's almost like also we learned nothing from the pandemic. And I'm speaking generally. I know there's a lot of people out there doing the work and who, you know, doing it, working in whether it's like social justice or, politics or policy. Like this isn't just like a passing fad for them, but their life. And so, yeah, I think there was like a real glimmer of opportunity, especially at the end of Pluto and Capricorn. And yeah, then there's this idea that I think a lot of people in the United States are going to have to realize that it's like no matter how hard you work, if the system is rigged against you, you're just never going to get anywhere. So you mentioned many AI focused predictions. I'm curious what you saw. I'm sure that they were like that this isn't going to be good. And I do think like I'm not an AI like absolutist in that like that it should not exist in any form. Similar with like plastic, right? Yeah, should plastic be floating around in our ocean and like clogging the nose holes of turtles? Like fuck no. Is single use plastic very necessary for medical things and like, situations that it's called for? Yeah, like it's a brilliant invention in that regard, it's like it's necessary. So we're not just, it's healthier in like those certain kind of circumstances. I'm thinking maybe just mainly the medical field. So, I'm sorry if anyone listening is an AI absolutist, like, no AI ever, ever, ever. I can assure you, I do not use any AI in any of my writing. Uh, the only thing I use it for is synonyms. Truth. That's my truth. I'm just, we describe a lot of the same things in astrology all the time. And I love my same set of words. So I use it for synonyms sometimes. So just being honest with you. And meal planning. I do like this is the thing. It's like if it's used for what it was promised for, like mundane activities, then that seems good. But also, of course, there's probably needs to be a new conversation about how much energy it's using. Because we know that it seems to be using a lot. But also, again, this is when we get into like the cherry picking, maybe of like policy or issues in the US or the globe. Um, yeah, I don't know. Nothing is like in a vacuum. That being said, what can we what are my thoughts on this long-term transit for us as people? I mean, I think like the future is going in a completely new direction and people are going to have to catch up with that. There's no going back to a time before COVID. There's no going back to a time before AI. There's no, like we can't go back because it's just like we've seen too much. Um, will there be a revolution against capitalism? I think our country doesn't like saying things like that. I think there'll be a revolution against being hungry and broke. And I don't think everyone's going to necessarily know that that's capitalism. Will there be advancements? I mean, sometimes it does have to get worse before it gets better. So I do think that that is the case. I just don't want anyone to feel doomed and afraid after listening to this. Um, because life goes on, astrology goes on, all of that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are opening up their mind, body, and souls that there could be a different way to live our lives. And I think that's going to be also really more demonstrated as a lot more people elect to leave the United States for other opportunities if they have that privilege and capability. And yeah, I mean, you can't have everyone. I think back to Pluto and Aquarius being tied to the French Revolution. Like there's a certain point of hunger and abuse and negligence before people start to head out on the streets with pitchforks. So I think, the United States is historically, I don't know, I just think about like in Europe, like, in France, they try to raise like the minimum not wage, the age of retirement. Everyone took those streets and shut down the public transit and did this and XYZ. And it's like, um, it takes a lot for the American public to get moved and to do those sorts of things. And it makes sense because our police is extremely militarized. So if you go out and do those protests, you're just, you could get killed or extremely hurt, or any of those things, which we've seen happen. But I'm not saying to not go do that. So my thoughts, long-term transit means for us as a people, I think we are moving into a new future. The past is the past. It's been the past, but it's going to be even more illuminated than ever before. And I think what this means is too, like, because the future is ever changing, everyone is vulnerable. And I think that's going to change a lot of the markets. I mean, why would you take on a mortgage, even if you always had a secure job in tech, if that is no longer a placing of security? We really can't guarantee any field being a place of security. Let me just look at like what aspecty things are being made like in the future. Is around 2035, 6-ish, when we move away from all that outer planet support of like Uranus and Neptune sending their positive love beams with Pluto. It's interesting to look at like 2036 because we'll have Saturn and Leo, and it's going to be, opposing that Pluto in Aquarius. And then on top of that, we're going to have the nodes there. So we'll have the North Node in Leo, the South Node in Aquarius. So that release of Aquarian, Plutonian things, or maybe like some sort of switch. And then Saturn and Leo about leadership and, bigger figures. We're also going to have Uranus and Cancer by that point in time. It's so weird to like, because I have like software, I can like look ahead of the future and it's like, what? Like the planets will be in these positions at some point in time in my lifetime, like God willing, that I'm alive, healthy, and well, and still reporting on the stars that come then. So yeah, I think the next 10 years is going to be a little bit of maybe deprogramming. I think it's going to be a little bit of truth telling. My advice, if anyone wants, take what connects for you, leave what doesn't, is you don't build community by kicking people out. You bring people in. I think there's going to be a lot of people who held previous viewpoints that were very closed-minded that are going to want to maybe enter a more open-minded space. And I think being singularly issued or whatever you want to call it is not going to be as effective. So I feel like Charlie XCX in that video. She's like, where someone's like, "Are you bi?" And she's like, you give bi vibes," and she's like, "Oh, I'm not bi, but it's cool. I give you bi vibes." And this is how I feel about Pluto and Aquarius. It's like, will it mean the revolution against capitalism? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that people know that's that. Will it be an embracing of community structure? Possibly. So I think that's what's gonna most likely happen, just based on both what's happening outside and what's happening up in the sky. AI wise, I think we will see more legislation eventually. Um, but I think, yeah, where the media trends go with this will be the real kicker. And it might just be even be more local things. Pluto in Aquarius with the Neptune and Aries feels very more like DIY and more local based shows or art or all of that stuff. So that's my thoughts as long term as people that, you know, Aquarians are so good at community building and leading. And I think the more, as much as we can lead by example of how we want the world to look, that's all we can really do outside of, showing up and supporting each other and doing no harm and all of that thing. So I hope I answered that question because it's a heady one, which I appreciate. Um, Please tell me there'll be a revolution against maybe I'll just like manifest and say there will be a revolution against capitalism. But I think it's going to be more of a revolution and an evolution of what do people need. And yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to give any credit to the fools of the administration. But it is kind of cool to see a finally out in the open talk of like how we aren't healthy in many ways. I am not Maha. Like have to clarify that. But like I think a lot of, all the talking points is how everything is wrong, right? So if everything's wrong, how do we fix them? And the things that are being suggested right now aren't real answers. So eventually, there's not this glossing over that everything is fine and is just going to go back to how it was because everything has been totally upended. So I also not even think, and I feel like I know and can see because of the United States Pluto return astrologically, because of the historical information and the history and patterns of empires falling around 250 years, and that's where we are. It was only a matter of time before the United States like took a seat. I think we are going to see China step into the world power seat that they already are basically in. And that's going to be something to reckon with. And I think hopefully, after all is said and done, and maybe come Pluto and Pisces time, American culture can be cool, like can be art forward, can be um inclusive and spiritual, obviously, but we have not come to terms with our history of slavery and I mean like god, like the civil rights movement wasn't that long ago. Like it's all recent. Okay, that was a rant. I hope that answered the question. I'm happy to expand on that if there's more specific question related to that. So that's my thoughts, but I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because and I've said this with friends. I'm like, oh, yay, the downfall. It kind of sucks living here during it. Like, oh, we were due for this, but it's hard to watch, feel, and experience, especially someone, I'm a 89 millennial. I've only seen things be bad. So, can only go up, right? Uh, but thank you for sending that, Emily. Appreciate your thinker of a question. Where are the thinkers? To quote FK Twigs, LOL. Um, okay, let me go to the next question. I don't know if I have this paranoia that I like didn't answer the last question, even though I just like talked at length, but it was one of those things where I feel like I talked a lot and maybe said nothing. So I hope that was something. Okay. Uh, on just an honesty hour there. I was like, did I say anything? Okay. This next question is from Luke. Hello, Luke. Thanks for being a third spacer. This is all about you guessed it, Venus. So Luke wrote in Scorpio Venus and why she doesn't like it with a little scorpion emoji. Perhaps also Venus fall and the other exile. Let's see. I think there's a little spell check, but it's all good. With Virgo and Aries, as she's in one right now, which because right now Venus is in Aries as I'm recording, versus Venus in air quotes normal placements versus home, Taurus and Libra, and exaltation Pisces. Because Venus is about to be the queen of the pool skies once again. And yeah, we're going to have Venus move into Taurus. It's early June as well, around the Jupiter and Cancer time. So that should be lovely. So basically, the too long didn't read. Let's talk about the essential dignities of Venus, shall we? Because that's what Luke is referencing. Historically, that Venus has these various positions. I'm going to use this reference article from my friends, the Astro Twins. I'll link the article as well, which is the four essential dignities of planets: exalted, detriment, domicile, and fall. So I will list out really quick where Venus is in all these, and then I will also give my takes on why. Because here's my thoughts on, because exalted and domicile, I feel like don't get talked a lot about because it's like, yay, they're good, like all is well. Where detriment and fall, I hear, people bring that up a lot, like, oh yeah, like my Mars is in fall, my Venus is in detriment, whatever, like, am I doomed, am I this, am I that? I think they're very handy to know. I think they give information about their spirit in your chart when the planets are transiting in the sky. I don't think detriment and fall placements mean bad necessarily, only because also I've experienced them both in my chart, in other people's charts, and in the transiting mundane astrology world. And they bring a very unique set of gifts. I think it's also like thinking about like someone acting within the realms of what normal society wants versus being maybe more eccentric and challenging and not maybe of the people or whatever. Just to read really quickly, even what the Astro Twins wrote over on Astro Style. What if I have planets in fall or detriment? Will I be unlucky? And they wrote the short answer is no. Maybe you have to work a little bit harder at that place in your life, or there might be some struggles that are associated with what that fall or detriment means. And they wrote, meeting adversity with a dignity can build character. So they also wrote that in their own charts, they have their moon in Scorpio and Jupiter and Cancer. Those are both in fall, talking about deep transformational work around emotions, which makes sense, with the watery Scorpio moon that can be a little cagey sometimes, Jupiter and Capricorn, maybe not known for its lucky position compared to other Jupiters. I always describe Jupiter and Capricorn as like, yeah, you're going to have to work for it. Again, depends on the other placements and aspects being made to the chart. But let me go through the Venus ones in just a moment here. Let me pull these up because I don't have them. I got to read them because my brain is a little toasty. So whatever the planet is in detriment, the opposite sign is the exaltation, and vice versa. And then whatever's fall is the fall is the exaltation, detriment is the domicile. There you go. So anyways, so for Venus is in fall in Virgo. It is in domicile in Libra and Taurus. It is in detriment in Aries and Scorpio, and it is exalted in Pisces. So I'll go through them being in their, quote, better position. So let's go with like Venus domicile in Libra and Taurus. Domicile is, this is their rulership. This is like, Venus rules over Libra and Taurus. So Venus makes a lot of sense for those two signs because Taurus is the sign connected to the Venus stuff that I think of Taurus is more of the material items, the earth, the things that are like we can touch with our hands. where the Venus element of relationships with Libra makes a lot of sense with this, scales, and that it's the first sign that deals with big partnerships and others and balance and coming together and making harmony with other fellow humans. So that's the domicile. So if you have Venus in Taurus or Libra in your chart, there can be this natural affinity to Venus things, maybe like working in design or art or what have you. It doesn't mean if you have Venus not in that you can't do those things. Just might be like a hidden talent, maybe even one that you ignore because it might be really natural to you. Also, maybe very relationship focused people. These are usually folks who are rarely find them single, like they're usually in their boot up sense. So, in the detriment, um, the opposite signs will have Aries and Scorpio. So, Venus and Aries, for example, I think is why it gets that rap being the opposite sign of Libra, is because Aries is the sign of self. Venus is like, don't be selfish, like think of others. But Venus and Aries can be quite the strength if that's in your natal chart, especially, we just had the Venus retrograde connected to that energy because it was in Aries and then Pisces, which we'll talk about because it's exaltation. So we went from that detriment to exaltation in that retrograde. But I love, when I see a strong Aries placement or a Venus Aries placement, because it can be like, this is a time to focus on yourself or to know that that might be the first dig people go for you. Like, oh, you're so selfish or this, or you're always focused on that. Maybe there's an element that's true. Maybe there's an element that is like a misunderstanding. Venus and Scorpio, which is the opposite of Taurus. Taurus is, in theory, because I think they can all have the same elements of their shadow side. Taurus is, here's my stuff and I want to give it to you. And then Scorpio is like, I have this stuff and are you going to pay me back? And I was actually scorekeeping. You took a lot more bread than I did. And, this like Scorpio can keep tabs where I think Taurus, even though if you cross a Taurus, I think that's when it's like the shadowy side, the Scorpio side can definitely come out of a Taurus. But yeah, it's considered detrimental for that Scorpio Venus because they are maybe not always knowing where they're coming from in their pursuit of Venus things. Taurus might be like, I made you these cookies because I love you and I want you to see that I thought of you and took the time after work to give you this. Where, Scorpio leaves cookies at the door with a mysterious note, just like XO, and wants to play maybe a little more games in their realms of Venus. Again, I'm generalizing. If you're like, wait, I'm a fucking Scorpio Venus, like, what are you talking about, lady? It depends on what house is in, what aspects it's being made. I'm also love Scorpio Venuses, like literally maybe my top Venus. It's also the opposite Venus to me. I actually had a really great chat. Let me write that down before I forget. I had a really great Venus chat on my friend Megan Rose's podcast, Starcross, where we talked about all the Venus placements. And she's a Scorpio Venus, I'm Taurus Venus. So we dug in. I'll relink that YouTube to that conversation we had. So we dug in there. And then let's go to the exaltation, which is in Pisces. Pisces is, I think it makes sense that Venus would be happy in Pisces waters because Pisces is, again, a very artistic sign, creative sign, expressive. Pisces is also tied to Neptune, which Neptune has a lot of the same shared connection with Venus. And then, where Pisces is overflowing with love, on the opposite end in fall is Virgo. And I think the issue with Venus and Virgo can be, they think, Pisces is overflowing with love. Virgo is like, am I willing to give this? Like, is this going to make sense? It can be a little more logical with their heart. Since they're very mercurial, very earthy, very mutable, it can feel like almost risky to be so vulnerable. And I think that's going to be the lesson for Virgo fall people. I'm married to a Virgo Venus man. Oh my God, acts of service is the love language, 8,000%. But also, like, we've had many talks, not to air out his business, of like, yeah, just being like maybe that generosity to any old person isn't as there for Virgo. They're a little more selective. You have to earn in. Or Pisces, I think sometimes that can also be the negative side to a good thing, right? Is like they might give it all away so much that they're like, wait, I just gave that out so freely. Like maybe I should have been more discerning. And I think that's the other part. Is like good doesn't mean better. You know, good air quotes or exalted or domicile, whatever, might just mean natural, makes sense, easy to access, fall, or detriment, harder to access. And that's really kind of like my breakdown. But, doesn't mean doomed, doesn't mean, oh, fuck, doesn't mean no. It might mean I need to access this in a different way. This is how I approach love. This is how I need to have this come back for me. And I'll put that list up because every planet has its domicileness or detriment. So you can go through the whole list and, you're not fucked if you have some, you probably do because we all do. I have a few planets that are happy, air quotes, in their home. And then also, I have my Mars in fall in Cancer. And I ride hard for that placement because I actually like a lot. It is a mutual reception with my moon. So maybe that's part of it too. But I think why Mars is in fall in Cancer is because Cancer is so emotionally motivated and wants everyone to be good. My issue and how I relate to Mars and Cancer is like, and maybe this is just me, I can tell when things are off, even the slightest. And then I go crazy because I'll be like, are you mad? I had to like overcome this. Like it took a Saturn return and time and growth to not just like assume that, everyone being quiet means everyone's mad, that everyone that's like not taking it personally, which is very cancer coded. But yeah, in terms of like, that started off with Scorpio Venus, and why she doesn't like it. She doesn't like it. She's just not playing the same game as Taurus Venus, which we have deemed to be the quote correct way to Venus. Scorpio Venus is just doing it in a more seedier, like a darker bar, like Scorpio is just doing it in the later hours of the eve where, Venus is maybe in this meadow, rising with the sun, making this plan like in Scorpio, Venus goes a little more rogue. So yeah, I'm not like afraid. Like I think transit wise, it can give us a lot of information. Like, yeah, being in a time of Venus and Aries, especially with the retrograde, maybe people are being too damn selfish and being so like revealing of like that they had secret self-motivated, agendas. And hopefully when Venus moves into Taurus, that will bring a little bit more of, hey, like, I have enough to share or I don't have enough to share. I think Taurus can also be very blunt in what they have to give and what they don't have to give. So I don't know why I'm also being like, so that also answer that question. I hope so. But yeah, I'm not afraid of like falls or detriments. I think they give context. They like make me, it's just like anything, like a recipe, like, oh, that adds a sweetness. Oh, that adds a spiciness. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. It also depends on your taste, right? Like maybe keep meaning Scorpio Venus is you're like, whoa, that's like really abrasive energy for me. Or like, damn, they just want to like get straight, no small talk for them. Where other Venuses might rub you the right way. So again, I'm a domicile Venus married to a Venus in fall, but also we're both Earth Venuses, so we do connect on that level. So that's the other part of like astrology. There's something like puzzle pieces. It's like, wow, our Venus is trine, but their dignities are different, Same with even me and my husband's Mercuries. I'm Gemini Mercury, he's Virgo Mercury. We square, but we're both what's the word? Oh my God, I was just talking about with the freaking dignities. I always like mix them up. So that's why I wanted to. We're both domicile. We're both domicile, but we square because we're both right in very different ways. It's like very ancient meme time, but like it's like the blue dress. Like, do you see blue or yellow? It's like we're both seeing it correctly because we have different rods and cones in our eyes, like playing tricks on us. So, yeah, that's my Venusian dignity scoop. Thank you so much to the third spacers for writing in those questions. I appreciated it so much. It was great, fun to answer. Again, I don't know why I keep going like, did I answer that? Gemini season just has me talking to myself, being like, huh, huh. Okay, so let me get into my Venus things. I'm recording a little ahead of time. I'm gonna get more into this in the new moon episode because I already recorded that because the new moon's around the corner in Gemini. But I'm getting ready to head on a massive road trip. I'm not gonna be home till Cancer season, late, like mid Cancer season. I'm hitting the road, working, going to an art residency in New York, which I'm really excited about. And I've been basically away from home the day after my birthday. We had a friend come and house it, and then I'm currently at my in-laws, and then we're hitting the road and I'm seeing family, I'm seeing friends, I'm like my itinerary, like I feel so Gemini spins right now. So that's just like the me status update. How has everyone else been doing? How are we feeling now that the energy has feel a little like stabilized? I mean, it has in many ways. I mean, also we're just like in a clown show for the next 4 years, unless something happens. Uh, just force majeure sort of things. Okay, I'm gonna get into Nathan Fielder, the rehearsal, also his natal chart, because I think it just speaks volumes to his work and his creativity and where his gifts lie. And also we can look at his planets that are what their dignities are as well. So I will get into that, but this is where the paywall will begin. So thank you to everyone who has listened. Please heart, comment, share, send to a friend. The more you interact with this post, the more it can be seen by others because that's how algorithms work. And I would love to hear your thoughts and takes, especially on the Pluto and Aquarius. Like, I'm happy. Feel free to disagree. Like, you can weigh in, chime in, all good. Same thing with the dignities. I'm curious your thoughts as well with the dignities of Venus in particular, but because we didn't get, I'll maybe do a whole episode on those, on the dignities, essential dignities. I think there's a lot of interesting information there and reflection that one can do. Maybe I'll do an episode on each one or each pairing that is. And yeah, so this is the paywall begin. So if you'd like to upgrade your subscription, you can do that and join us on the other side of the paywall. You can do your free trial. And yeah, let's get into the rehearsal.